Hey, it's me, Albini, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking about Donquixote Rosinante. That's right, the blocker leader. Let's start with his effect. End of your turn, if you have 6 cards or less in your hand, set this leader as active. So that means if you can swing with them and then restand them if your hand size meets between 6 and less. So let's get to the overall theme of the deck, that being cards that want to stay on the field and reusing their effects. Cards such as Sugar, Santamaru, and any blocker that's in the deck. So yeah, with that being said, let's get straight into the deck list. Starting with Izo. On play, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Easy, 2k counter. Moving on to Luffy. Blocker, play up to 1 film Straw Hat Crew type or Straw Hat Crew type character with a cost of 4 or less from your hand. That being Vanilla Usopp, as well as Vanilla Zoro. Moving on to the GOAT, Sugar.
That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Opponent's turn. Once per turn, when your opponent plays a character, if your leader is Donquixote Pirates, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters, then rest this card. On play, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So this effect rests any card in the game that's a character on your opponent's turn if Sugar is active. This effect is also mandatory, so even if your opponent plays something beforehand that you don't want to rest, I think Sugar is going to rest herself even if you don't target anything. So you gotta rest something. Moving on to Doflamingo. Big Dofi. On play, a total of up to 3 of your opponent's characters or leaders do not become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. Easy as pie. If you get hit with multiple of these, you might as well quit. Over to Donquixote Doflamingo Blocker. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and return them to the bottom or top in any order. This is an on-play effect. So yeah, it's a body that looks into the future and becomes a blocker. Well, it's a blocker. Blah, 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 blah. Moving on to Bartholomew Kuma. On KO, play up to 1 Pacifista with a cost of 4 or less from your hand, that being Blocker Pacifista, who you can have multiple copies of per his effect, and Vanilla Pacifista. They also can both be played from Santamaru. Dawn X1, activate main once per turn, rest 2 Dawn, play up to 1 Pacifista with a cost of 4 or less from your deck. Now, this character doesn't necessarily have to rest himself to use his ability, but I like to swing with Santamaru, so it's good when I can make him a 5 body and swing into my opponent and then proceed to block with him using Rosinante's leader effect. So, moving on to Kaya. Kaya is a 2k counter, draw 2, trash 2. On to the events. Pung Gibson, probably the best green event card that I can think of that's easily accessible. Ability, counter, up to 1 of your leaders or characters, gain 4,000 power during this battle, then rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Trigger, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters. This card is literally just Sugar, but in event form. Moving on to Spider's Web. Counter, up to 1 of your opponents or up to 1 of your leaders or characters gain 4,000 power during this battle, then set up to 1 of your characters as active. This card is nasty with Luffy. When you can block something, counter out to protect Luffy, play down Spider's Web on whatever next attack, restand Luffy, and then block again. This is absolutely bonkers. Moving over to 3000 Worlds. Main, place up to 1 character with a cost of 5 or less at the bottom of their owner's decks. That could be your cards or your opponent's. Trigger, place up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less at the bottom of their owner's deck. So yet again, it could be your cards or your opponent's. Over to the final card in the deck, Red Rock. Place up to 1 character to the bottom of their owner's deck. Trigger, place 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to the bottom of their owner's deck. Well, that's the list. If you liked it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Also, comment down below what you might change or what cards you didn't know worked the way they did. So yeah, with that being said, see you later. Bye!